Every game has rules, but sometimes players break more than that. Tonight we enter the dark side of gaming, where rivalry, obsession, and anger leave the screen and spill into reality. These are the stories of players who turned their games into real-life nightmares. Welcome to Darkness Narrator, Darkness. Battlefield. In the digital world, friendship feels safe. No faces, no danger, just voices, laughter, and hours of gaming together. But sometimes, behind that screen, a predator is waiting. Breck Bednar was only 15, a quiet and intelligent boy from Surrey, England, who loved technology, coding, and online games. Through one of those games, he met someone, a name that would change everything: Lewis Danes. Danes was older, 18 years old, smart, manipulative, and dangerous. He ran an online group where he played the role of a leader, gaining respect from younger players like Breck. Over months, he built trust and convinced Breck that he was special, that he was part of something secret, powerful, and only for a chosen few. Breck's parents noticed the change. He grew distant, spending hours locked in his room, whispering through his headset to people they didn't know. His mother tried to intervene. She even contacted the police, warning that her son was being groomed online, but nothing was done. Then came February 17, 2014. Breck told his parents he was going to visit a friend. He took a taxi to Grays, Essex, to meet Danes in person for the first time. It would also be the last. That night, something horrific happened inside Danes' apartment. The police called it a sadistic attack. When officers arrived, they found Breck's lifeless body and Danes calmly waiting. He had already called emergency services, saying simply, "I've hurt someone, he's dead." There was no escape, no chaos, just cold calculation. Danes had lured Breck into his home, killed him, and later told investigators it was necessary. His mind was consumed by fantasy, a belief that he was part of a secret order where he and Breck were meant to fulfill a twisted destiny. The court described the murder as deliberate, planned, and cruel beyond understanding. Danes was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 25 years. Breck's family was left with only questions and the painful knowledge that they had seen the danger coming. This case shattered the illusion of safety in online worlds. It proved that behind the glowing screens and friendly usernames, monsters can hide in plain sight. For Breck, a boy who trusted too much, the game ended long before it should have. And for the rest of us, it's a warning that in the age of connection, evil doesn't need to break into your home. It only needs a headset and a voice that sounds like a friend. Dota 2. In the city of Ufa, deep within the Russian Federation, a story unfolded that blurred the line between online rivalry and real-world violence. A story that would show just how far digital anger can travel when it's left to grow unchecked. It began, as so many modern tragedies do, with a game, a multiplayer online world, a clan, and a rivalry that existed entirely behind screens. The players didn't know each other's real names, only usernames, ranks, and reputations. In the game, loyalty was everything, betrayal unforgivable. For months, two groups had been at odds, insults traded, matches sabotaged, victories mocked. In the digital world, these conflicts were common, part of the culture. But for one group of players in Ufa, the anger didn't stop when the game ended. It began to fester. Among them was a young man, a dedicated gamer, whose life revolved around his online clan. Reports say he spent endless hours playing, building trust, earning respect, and defending his digital allies. But one night, words became weapons. A disagreement inside the game turned into personal threats. And then, the virtual feud spilled into reality. Members of a rival clan, people he had once only known by their avatars, decided to confront him in person. They found him in Ufa. Witnesses said there was shouting, an argument, and then violence. He was attacked, beaten, and left fatally wounded. By morning, he was dead. The tragedy shocked the online community. What began as a virtual rivalry, something meant to be entertainment, had crossed the ultimate line. It wasn't about a game anymore. It was about pride, humiliation, and ego. Russian authorities confirmed that the fight originated from an online feud. One of the attackers was reportedly another gamer from the same online world, someone who days earlier had been part of the same virtual team. The press called it the UFA gamer murder. It was one of the first recorded cases where digital clan wars turned into a real-world killing. And though the details remain incomplete, names never fully released, reports varying in accuracy, the message was clear. When you take the rage of the screen into the streets, no one wins. This wasn't a story about a game. It was a story about how obsession, identity, and virtual ego can consume someone until they forget there's a human being on the other side of the screen. In UFA, a young gamer died because others couldn't separate competition from reality. His last battle wasn't fought with a keyboard or a controller. It was fought on the cold ground against people who used to call him an ally. Because sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not the one inside the game, but the one waiting for you when you log off. The Legend of Mir 3. In 2005, in the heart of Shanghai, a story unfolded that blurred the line between the virtual world and reality. It began inside an online game, a world of adventure, weapons, and digital glory. But it ended with blood on the floor of a real apartment. This is the case of Chu Chengwei, a man who killed over a sword that didn't even exist in the real world. Chu was a dedicated player of The Legend of Mir 3, one of China's most popular online games at the time. He spent months earning a rare virtual weapon, a dragon saber that made him powerful in the game's digital realm. It wasn't just a piece of code to him, it was a trophy, a symbol of effort, time, and pride. But in a world where pixels can be traded for money, value becomes dangerous. Chu lent the sword to another player, his friend Zhu Kaoyuan, asking him to use it carefully, but Zhu decided to sell it online for around 7,200 yuan, roughly $870. When Q found out, he didn't see it as a simple betrayal. To him, it was theft, the destruction of something he had built with his own life's hours. He demanded justice, but the police couldn't help him. To them, the sword wasn't real. It existed only in a server, just data, but to Q it was everything. Days later, he went to Zhu's apartment. The confrontation escalated, words turned into shouting, and then into rage. In an instant, Chu pulled out a knife and stabbed Zhu in the chest, killing him. The virtual world had spilled into reality, and a human life was gone over an illusion. The news shocked China. A murder caused by a video game item became national headlines, forcing society to ask new questions. Can virtual possessions have real-world value? How far can obsession blur the line between game and life? Chu was arrested and sentenced to death, but with a 2-year suspension, meaning life imprisonment if he behaved in prison. In Chinese law, that's a second chance, though for the victim there would be none. This case became one of the first in history to link a digital asset to a real-world killing, and it showed something chilling. When human greed and pride meet the illusion of virtual ownership, the result can be deadly. The Legend of Mir 3 continued online for years after the crime. Thousands of players still chasing virtual treasures, perhaps unaware that one of those treasures had already claimed a life. This was not just the murder of a man, it was the murder of a boundary, the border between the digital and the real, shattered by a single invisible sword. Halo 3. In October of 2007, a quiet American suburb became the stage for one of the most disturbing crimes ever connected to a video game. It began not in a dark alley or a dangerous neighborhood, but inside an ordinary family home. Daniel Petrich was 16 years old. Like many teenagers of his generation, he loved gaming, especially Halo 3, a futuristic shooter that had just been released. For Daniel, Halo wasn't just entertainment. It was an escape, a world where he could be powerful, respected, and free. But his parents, deeply religious, didn't see it that way. They believed the game was violent, dangerous, and harmful. One day, after discovering that Daniel had bought the game secretly, his father took it away and locked it in a safe. That act, something most parents might consider harmless discipline, became the spark that lit a deadly fire. Consumed by anger and obsession, Daniel waited. He knew where the key was hidden. Days later, he opened the safe, retrieved the game, and also took his father's 9mm handgun. On October 20th, 2007, Daniel entered the living room where his parents were sitting. Without a word, he pointed the gun and fired. His mother was killed instantly. His father was gravely wounded, but survived. Then, in a desperate and chilling attempt to hide what he had done, Daniel placed the gun next to his father's body, staging the scene to look like a murder-suicide. He even called the police, pretending to be the shocked son who had just discovered the tragedy. But the truth unraveled quickly. His father, despite his injuries, lived and told investigators what had really happened. In court, Daniel's defense claimed that his obsession with the game had distorted his perception of reality, that he could no longer tell the difference between virtual violence and real life. But the jury saw otherwise. He was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 23 years. The story of Daniel Petrich became a dark symbol, a reminder of how obsession, isolation, and emotional immaturity can twist even the most ordinary moments into catastrophe. This wasn't about Halo 3. It was about control, anger, and a young mind that couldn't separate punishment from betrayal. A confiscated game became a reason for murder. A son became a killer, and a family was destroyed forever. Because in some minds, fantasy doesn't just stay on the screen. It becomes the world they live in. Counter-Strike Murder. It was supposed to be just another night at the cyber cafe. The screens glowed, the sound of gunfire echoed through the headphones, and for a few hours, two teenagers lived inside the virtual war of Counter-Strike. But in Russia, in the frozen city of Novosibirsk, that game would leave the screen and spill into reality. Alexei, 17 years old. Alexander, 14. Two boys who shared the same passion for gaming, until that night, when rivalry became obsession. The reports say it began with insults in-game, shouting, teasing, the usual adrenaline of competition. But something changed in Alexander's eyes. Every defeat felt personal. Every loss was a wound to his pride. When the cafe closed, the players left. But Alexander didn't go home. He waited, hidden in the cold shadows outside the building, hands clenched, heartbeat racing with a rage that had nothing to do with the game anymore. When Alexei finally stepped into the street, victory still fresh in his smile, the younger boy attacked. He struck him again and again, hitting his head, stomping on his chest until the sound of the city disappeared beneath the violence. When it was over, there was only silence and snow. The next morning, passers-by found the body near the cafe. The police said Alexander had tried to bury his victim, a desperate attempt to hide the horror he had created. He was arrested soon after. Just 14 years old. Too young, they said, for prison, but old enough to understand what he had done. Russian authorities treated the case as juvenile homicide. The court sent him to a youth correctional facility where he would spend the next 4 years. In the media, the story spread fast. The Counter-Strike murder, a tragedy that ignited debates about violence in games, obsession, and the fragile line between fiction and reality. But beyond the headlines, there was something more unsettling. The realization that this wasn't about a game at all. It was about anger, about how quickly virtual rivalry can awaken something ancient, something primal, when the rules of the screen no longer apply. In the end, 2 lives were destroyed, one buried in the frozen ground, the other locked away, forever haunted by the sound of gunfire that no longer came from a game. Because sometimes, what begins as play doesn't end as play. In every story you've heard tonight, the game was just the beginning. Behind each screen, behind each nickname, there was something darker, anger, obsession, and the moment when fantasy became real. Because sometimes, the most dangerous battles aren't fought in the game, but in the mind of the player. If you made it this far into the dark, leave a like, share this story, and subscribe to Darkness Narrator, where every click reveals another shadow, and every story reminds us that darkness never logs off.